I was born in a house that didn't have corners. That's what Mama used to say. Corners collect shadows, she whispered once, pointing toward the round, bent walls of our trailer like she was unveiling the pyramids of Egypt. She made our ramshackle home seem holy, like we were the lucky ones, chosen to live where shadows couldn't cling. Truth is, it wasn't really a house at all. It was an aluminum trailer squatting behind a Texaco station outside Tupelo, Mississippi. No electricity. No plumbing. Just enough walls to keep out most of the rain and most of the critters. I remember the roof leaked over the bed, and on stormy nights, Mama would tape trash bags above us to catch the drips. If the wind came in sideways, we'd get soaked anyway. But Mama would always spin it into magic. "We're livin' under tin stars, baby," she'd say. "Ain't nobody else sleepin' under stars that sing." And for a while, I believed her. Daddy wasn't like the other fathers I saw on TV when I'd sneak into Mr. Harlan's hardware store and watch the grainy screen behind the counter. Those TV dads wore clean shirts and had jobs with names like accountant or insurance broker. My daddy didn't have a title. Not unless you count genius in disguise or meteor man, which is what he called himself after he sold 5 chunks of gravel to a woman in Jackson, swearing they were pieces of a fallen star. "It's all about belief, Clara Mae," he told me, his hands blackened with motor grease and cigarette ash. "The universe don't care what it is. If someone believes it's a meteor, then hell, it is." That was Daddy's philosophy on everything. Money, God, love. He said if you believed in something hard enough, it became true. He drank like he was trying to disappear, but he loved us fiercely when he remembered to come home. There were nights he'd vanish for days, maybe weeks. Mama would tie his boots together and leave them on the porch like a shrine, waiting for the ghost to return. When he finally stumbled in, smelling like cheap whiskey and gasoline, Mama never scolded. She just took his face in her hands and said,
"There you are, Stardust."
Mama was a dreamer. She made things from nothing, curtains from pillowcases, dresses from feed sacks, dinner from cornmeal and hope. She believed in signs. Birds, broken clocks, spilled salt. She once told me my life would be full of remarkable sorrow and even more remarkable joy. I was 8, staring into a bowl of watery grits, trying to ignore the hole in the trailer wall where a possum had gotten in. "You'll grow up and do something big," she said. "Not big like money. Big like light." She'd sit under the dim light of a battery lantern and fold stars out of old newspaper. She made hundreds of them, taping them to the ceiling and walls until our trailer looked like the inside of a snow globe. "When we don't have the real thing, we make our own," she'd say. School was a minefield. I learned early how to lie with a smile. If a teacher asked if I'd eaten breakfast, I'd say, "Oh yes, pancakes," even though I could still feel my belly gnawing at itself. I kept my hair in braids to hide how little it got washed, and I never invited anyone home. I was smart, and the teachers liked me, but I stayed invisible by design. One day in 3rd grade, a girl named Elise leaned close and whispered, "Your backpack smells like mold." It probably did. It had sat in a puddle the week before and Mama dried it with a hairdryer at the gas station. I just smiled and said, "That's what happens when you keep time travelers in there." She blinked. I made my voice hushed and serious.
"Don't tell anyone, or they'll escape."
After that, she left me alone. The first time I tried to run away, I was 11. I packed 2 peanut butter crackers, a flashlight, and Mama's old romance novel, the one with the dog-eared pages. I made it 3 miles before I realized I didn't have a plan. I sat under a billboard that read "God answers an email" and cried until my feet went numb. Daddy found me just before dawn, his truck wheezing and popping as he pulled off the road. "You trying to leave your whole life behind?" he asked, squatting beside me. I looked away. I just wanted somewhere warm, He lit a cigarette and stared at the sunrise like it was a personal offense. Ain't nothing out there, but new kinds of broken. This, he waved his arm toward the trailer in the distance, this is the devil we know. I didn't know what that meant then. But later, I understood. Mama got sick the winter I turned 13. Not hospital sick, we couldn't afford that, but the kind of sick that lives in your lungs and won't let go. She coughed until she bled, but she refused to go to the clinic. They'd just pump me full of poison, she said. I'll take my chances with time and prayer. We didn't have time. We had onion water, Vapor Rub, and some expired Tylenol that Daddy stole from the Dollar General. She got thinner and quieter, folding fewer stars. One night, I found her slumped over the kitchen table, a trail of blood down her chin. I screamed until Daddy came running. He carried her to bed and wrapped her in blankets. She's strong, he muttered. Too stubborn to die. She lived. Barely. And when she woke, she smiled and said, "Guess I'm not done yet." But after that, the trailer grew quieter. Like we were all holding our breath, waiting for the next piece to fall. When Mama's cough became permanent music in the trailer, Daddy said it was time for a little relocation. That was his way of saying he'd burned too many bridges, and someone had probably threatened to shoot him again. So, we packed up everything we owned, 3 plastic bins, a coffee can of nickels, and a cardboard box full of Mama's newspaper stars, and headed to Cousin Bertie's place in western Arkansas. Bertie wasn't really our cousin. She'd been Mama's best friend in high school, and they used to sneak out and hitch rides to Memphis to dance with boys in gas station uniforms. Bertie had a husband who didn't talk much, a TV that worked half the time, and a floor she let us sleep on. "You can stay 2 weeks," she said, lighting a menthol cigarette and not looking at Mama. "I ain't running no charity." Daddy disappeared 3 days in. Mama laid on the floor wrapped in an old quilt, coughing into a bucket. I cooked what I could, a lot of rice, a lot of canned peaches. I got Bertie's kids off to school and scrubbed pans and cleaned up cigarette ash and kept quiet. That was the first time I felt the heat of resentment curling up my spine like ivy. Bertie's youngest, Chance, followed me around like a duckling. One night, he asked if I was poor. I said, "We're just in between places." He nodded solemnly. "Mama says poor folks got nothing but dreams and debt." I wanted to punch something. Instead, I smiled and said,
Dreams are where big things start.
Daddy came back exactly 13 days later, carrying a bag of apples and a shoebox full of loose wires and screws. "It's gonna be a radio," he announced proudly, dropping the box on the floor. "Just needs a little Clara Mae magic." He looked older, skinnier. His knuckles were scraped raw. Mama sat up in her makeshift bed and said nothing. Bertie watched from the hallway, arms crossed. "You've got 2 days," she said. "Then you're out." We left that night. Daddy said we couldn't stay where people didn't believe in us. He tried to make it sound noble, but Mama wouldn't even look at him. She just clutched her paper star tin like it was a baby. We slept in the truck for a week after that. I missed school. I missed food. I missed having a bathroom that wasn't a field behind a gas station. Then one night, I woke up to Mama vomiting blood into a coffee can. Daddy just sat there, rubbing his temples, whispering prayers or curses, I couldn't tell which. The next morning, I took the apple bag, walked into a grocery store, and filled it with whatever I could carry, crackers, cough syrup, a bottle of orange juice. The cashier watched me walk out and didn't say a word. I think she saw the bruises under my eyes. I didn't feel like a thief. I felt like a nurse. Like a daughter, doing what daughters do. When we finally settled for a bit, in an old, abandoned house near the train tracks outside Little Rock, I found a library 2 miles away. It became my church. The first time I walked in, I thought I might cry. There was warmth and light and silence that didn't feel empty. The librarian was a black woman named Miss Eunice who wore gold clip-on earrings and smelled like cinnamon. She asked if I had a library card. I shook my head. She looked me over, my tattered shoes, the rip in my coat, and said, "Everyone deserves a card." She filled out the form for me and slid the little piece of laminated hope across the counter. "This is your passport," she said. "Use it well." I read everything I could carry. Books about stars and girls with secrets and how the body works and how to build radios out of scrap metal. Every week, I walked those 2 miles with a bag of borrowed dreams. Sometimes, I stayed until closing just to feel human. There was a glass sugar jar in Mama's tin box that she never let me touch. It had a paper label on it. For Clara Mae. I used to imagine it held something magical, wishing dust, maybe, or a piece of starlight. One night when Mama was asleep and Daddy was off who knows where, I opened it. Inside was a wad of cash, mostly 1s and 5s, some crumpled 10s. There was a note, written in Mama's looping, shaky script. "For when you're ready to leave the ghosts behind. Go find your light, baby girl." I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. But I didn't take the money. Not yet. I folded the note back into the jar and screwed the lid tight. Sometimes just knowing it was there giving me enough strength to survive another week. At 15, I started attending public school again under a fake address and a made-up guardian name. The guidance counselor, Miss Pendleton, saw right through me. "You're clever," she said, tapping her pen against my forged papers. "But clever doesn't feed you or keep you safe." I stared at the floor. "Do you want help?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer. She offered me a granola bar and a pair of gently used shoes. I took the shoes. The granola bar felt too much like charity. She never reported me. I think she knew the system wouldn't be kind. Instead, she kept me stocked with notebooks and pencils, told me about college, helped me register for free lunch under an old program ID. Sometimes help doesn't look like fireworks. Sometimes it's just someone who notices that your hands are shaking. The night the house burned down, none of us screamed. It wasn't ours. Nothing ever really was. Some junkies had been squatting in the basement and left a candle burning near the insulation. I watched it from across the street, barefoot and shaking, Mama clutching her Starbucks, Daddy drunk and slurring about starting over. The fire licked the sky, hot and orange and hungry. And I felt free. Like the ghosts couldn't follow me anymore. Like maybe this was the sign I'd been waiting for. I left 2 weeks later. Mama was asleep. Daddy was out cold on the porch. I opened the sugar jar and took the money. I packed my notebooks, my library card, 1 photo of Mama holding baby me on the trailer steps, and 3 of her folded newspaper stars. I left her a note. "I love you more than fire and stars. I'll send for you one day. Love always. Clara Mae." I took a bus to Memphis and then a train to Chicago. It wasn't magic. It was terrifying and smelled like old socks and cheap fries. But it was mine. I got a job at a diner and a cot in a shelter and started taking night classes at a community college. It was hard. Some days, it still is. But every night, I taped one of Mama's paper stars above my bed. The diner was called Mel's, though Mel hadn't owned it in 20 years. It sat on the corner of Ashland and 23rd, open 24 hours, always smelling like burnt toast and old grease. I started there scrubbing dishes, then graduated to wiping tables, then pouring coffee with a smile that didn't always reach my eyes. But Mel's gave me something I hadn't had in years, routine. I had to be there at 5 a.m. sharp. No excuses, no sickness, no sob stories. You showed up, or you were out. And I showed up. Day after day, bleary-eyed but grateful. There was a waitress named Denise who took me under her wing. She wore too much blush and cursed like a sailor but had a soft spot for strays. She taught me how to count tips fast, handle the drunks at midnight, mix a proper egg cream, and stand up for myself without making a scene. "You're too soft, kid," she said once, stuffing a $5 bill into my apron. But you've got the bones of a fighter. I clung to that. Some nights, it was the only thing keeping me from giving up. I started sending postcards to Mama. Never an address, never a full return name. Just a P.O. box I paid for in quarters. I'd send her pictures of bookstores, autumn trees, and cups of cocoa with whipped cream. And on the back, I'd write a line or two. Today I saw a woman who looked like you, head held high like she owned the world. I miss you in the mornings. No one makes toast the way you did. Sometimes, I included a $10 bill or a folded star of my own. I never knew if she got them. But I hoped. And hope was enough to keep writing. I got into the community college on a scholarship for low-income students. I cried in the admissions office when they handed me the acceptance letter. Not pretty tears, ugly, gasping, red-faced sobs. I studied psychology. I wanted to understand people like my parents. I wanted to know what made someone give up and what made someone keep going. I wanted to make sense of all the broken pieces in my own heart. There was a professor named Dr. Sue who told me once, "You're not studying this to fix your past. You're studying this to heal your future." I wrote that down and taped it to my mirror. I hadn't seen Mama in nearly 3 years when she showed up at Mel's. I was refilling ketchup bottles when Denise tapped my shoulder. "There's a woman out front asking for you. Says her name's Gloria." I froze. Only one person ever called herself Gloria around me. She looked thinner, older. But her eyes were the same, sharp as tacks, soft around the edges. She was wearing a coat too big and shoes too small, and she carried the tin box like a sacred thing. We sat at a corner booth. She ordered coffee. I held her hand. She said, "Your daddy passed last winter. Drank himself numb." I nodded. I didn't cry. Then she said, "I kept all your postcards." And she opened the tin to show me, every single one, stacked in neat piles, the folded stars resting on top like blessings. We didn't say much more. We didn't need to. When she left, I gave her my key. "You can stay with me a while." She didn't answer. But she pocketed the key. In my final year of college, I started a project called the Paper Star Project. I set up boxes in shelters and schools where kids could write their dreams on paper stars and drop them inside. I wrote grants, did interviews, and pitched the idea to nonprofits. One local TV station did a short piece on me, From Tin Roofs to Paper Stars, One Girl's Journey from Poverty to Purpose. I watched it with Mama on my thrift store couch, both of us eating popcorn with too much salt. "You're a star, baby girl," she whispered. "Always were." Mama passed quietly in her sleep 2 years later. I found her in the little guest room we'd made into a nest of books and crocheted blankets. Her hand rested on the tin box. At the funeral, small, simple, honest, I read a letter I found inside the box. To my daughter Clara Mae. "You were my light in the darkest places. I wish I'd done better. I wish the world had been kinder. But you became your own sun. Keep shining. Love always. Mama." I'm 32 now. I live in a small apartment above a bakery. The walls are covered in framed stars, some from Mama, some from me, some from kids in shelters I'll never meet. I teach psychology at a community college not far from Mel's. Denise still works there, still curses, still slips fives into new girls' aprons. Some nights, I sit by the window with tea and think about that sugar jar. About Cousin Bertie's floor. About Daddy's loose wires and dreams that never quite tuned in. And I thank them. Because every broken thing led me here. And here, right here, is full of light.